My name is Ford Evans. I'm a research associate at Oregon State University's Hatfield Marine Science Center. I am currently working with oysters and seaweed at the coast, doing some research out there on both of those.
So thinking about your job, what is something that you enjoy the most about it?
I would say the hands-on work that I do at the coast. I do a lot of the animal husbandry with the oysters, and also a lot of plant husbandry with the seaweed, with the algae that we're growing out there. I actually live here in Corvallis and commute to the coast, and it is worth it to me to make the commute out there in order to actually get my hands wet, as I like to say. To do the work. I would say another thing that I find very enjoyable is the type of work that I do is very applied. So it's targeted towards farmers, to oyster farmers and to seaweed farmers. How can we raise these animals and seaweeds more efficiently? So that is definitely something that I get a lot of enjoyment out of as well.
Awesome. And as you think more about your job, what's one skill that's really important that people don't talk about?
I would say, I don't know if this is an out of the box answer, but I think being a good team player and actually being patient, not too patient, but being patient, are two overlooked aspects.
Yeah, those are great.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel like was the most important step that you took in your career?
There were a lot of steps, and it all sort of evolved into where I am today. But something, and this, I don't know if this is a cop-out, but it actually starting at the bottom. I reflect on that often. Doing the field work, doing the grunt work, as it were. In the case of oyster research, it's often going out at the wintertime, midnight, low tides, and all these sorts of things. But learning the process of husbandry, of raising the animals from the bottom up, as it were. So I think the most important step, I think, was starting at the bottom, experiencing the full range of work that's involved in what I do now has been very important. So.
And as you talk about starting at the bottom, what kind of obstacles did you have to overcome to get to where you are now?
I would say there weren't so many obstacles. Now, this is me trying to think back. I'm sure there were plenty of obstacles, but none that I didn't get around or over. One of the challenges, I suppose, I don't know if it's an obstacle, is in my case, it's, I guess, sort of a work-life balance. My family and I live here in Corvallis. I was doing some work here in Corvallis, and that was very convenient. But I did want to get back out to the coast and do the work, hands-on work at the coast, and that presented somewhat of a challenge. But what I end up doing is now commuting 3 days a week to get to the coast, but it is important enough to me. It's an obstacle that I had to overcome to do my current work that I'm doing now. In my career from the beginning, there were obstacles, but I think if you're flexible enough, you try a lot of different things. You're oftentimes keeping plenty busy, and there are job opportunities. It may not be a totally linear experience, but all of that work experience, I think, plays into, is all transferable, I think, to your final goal. So awesome. Be flexible.
Good advice. What experiences have you had that have helped you the most in your career?
I would say, again, it's the hands-on experience, the field work that I've done, and from my earliest work, earliest field work, which included being a turtle observer on oil platforms in the Gulf of Mexico, all the way, doing field work here in Yaquina Bay, and on the Oregon coast, on the East Coast. I think those are the sorts of experiences that allow you to, in the case of doing research, allows you to see the research in a very applied context. You understand why you're doing it and how it's done. So I found that the field work that I did was, the hands-on field work that I did was essential, I think, to where I am now, and also with the animal husbandry aspect. It's difficult to learn those types of skills without the hands-on application. So,
Awesome. As you look back on some of those maybe not so great moments or failures, what did you learn from those?
Well, it happens quite often, actually. Both and failure is maybe not the word I would use, but in your career and in your trying to figure out what you want to do, it's pretty important to push the envelope, to try things you don't think to try different things. Some things work, some things don't work, and it's that failure that I think helps direct where you're heading. So try lots of things. It's okay to fail at certain things. Just try your hardest. That would be the caveat there. It's also interesting from a research standpoint. Things not working out can be very informative. The key there with the research aspect is you do have to know why it failed. There is some rigor that you have to ask these questions, but the fact that something didn't work the way you thought it would, or the way that will be useful to people, can be important. So I guess the long answer is I experience failure frequently, and it can be very educational.
What activities can students participate in right now that would help to prepare them for a career similar to yours?
Yeah, I think here again, I don't know if I can. Well, actually, one thing I can say is this sort of work that you're doing right now is getting out there and engaging and taking these leadership types of roles. I think is fantastic. In terms of the work that I do, which is mostly aquaculture, again, I think it is trying different things. Aquaculture is the growing of plants and animals in an aquatic environment. It happens all over, actually. So getting experience where you can. If you can volunteer, that's fantastic. If it's a job, even better. But try to get that experience. I would also say that, for a while, there was a bumper sticker saying that aquaculture is agriculture. So it's the idea of growing plants and animals with the farmer's intervention to increase productivity. So actually a lot of agriculture can be transferable to aquaculture, just the idea of husbandry, either animal husbandry or plants. Photosynthesis is the same for plants and seaweed. So there's a lot of things that'll transfer. And then some experience, maybe hobby type things, can also begin to get your, you can begin to understand if this is something you're actually interested in. Hobby could be something like just an aquarium or something like that. But to sort of test the waters and see if this is something that you enjoy. So.
Sweet, that's great advice. So circling back around to your career, what helps you to stay motivated and inspired?
So in this case, I think it is, I enjoy the research quite a bit. Maybe I'll give two examples, or two reasons. One is keeping in mind the applied nature of it. So I'm doing some research now with oysters, and we're looking into the prevalence of a certain oyster virus along the West Coast. It's in Southern California. now, and there's concern about it spreading up the coast. So we're doing some what we call sentinel work, sort of a canary in the coal mine. We're putting oysters out at various places along the West Coast. And we structure that in order to be the most informative possible. So we not only know where the virus is, but also how it's sort of affecting the animals. We can set up our experiments this way. All of it is intended to be very applied and meaningful to oyster farmers. So one thing that keeps me motivated is understanding that the work that I'm doing is important to farmers. Another thing that I'm doing is seaweed research. We're trying to look into different ways of growing seaweed in tanks on land, and with the idea of making it as cost effective and as efficient as possible for budding seaweed farmers. So again, it's always with an eye towards how is this going to be applied? So that keeps me motivated.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
I would say it's a tricky one. Yeah. I would say get experience, be as involved as you can. It's okay to fail, as it were. Try different things, see what you like, see what you don't like. Discovering what you don't like, I think, can be very revealing, and now you can focus your attention on other things, other more promising paths for your career. So I would say get lots of experience, try different things, and don't be so hard on yourself. That would be the other thing. You're doing just fine.
That's great advice. And just to round us out, what something that you are the most proud of?
That's a good question. I would say I am proud of my family, of being successful at raising a family and having a loving wife and child. And from a career standpoint, balancing that with a career. So the work-life balance is challenging, but so far so good. I'm proud of where we stand now. And I think that might be what I'm most proud about.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and letting us interview you for this Ag Science Cafe. You'll have to keep your eyes open and watch for it on the site.